It's basketball grades. Who made the cut and who might need a little summer school on this team? What's coming up next? Locked On Badgers.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate all the everydayers. Thank you so much for being here. Today's episode, we're continuing to just kind of wrap up and refocus on that basketball season. We're going to do all the players, all the regular players' grades. We're going to do a coaching grade, season grade. We also asked the community, so we put this out on Twitter. So we have your community grades on these players too. I think it's going to be really fun. We're going to go from most minutes to least minutes, and we're only doing the regular players, right? So it's basically a 9-man-ish rotation going from Blackwell all the way down to Amos, and then we'll do a Gard grade at the end. We're going to start here. I'm going to put the community grades up, and Rajiv and I will just take turns going first. I'm going to let you kick it off with John Blackwell. What is your grade for John Blackwell? Not really quick. I want to make sure that everyone understands we're doing this based on our preseason expectations of these players. That was the criteria. Everyone's expectations might have been different, but that's the criteria by which we're judging these players. Go ahead, Rajiv. John Blackwell.
Yeah, I'm giving him an A for me. And I thought about maybe like an A- or a B just because I did expect him to have a good season. So he kind of was in line with that. But at the end of the day, he still averaged 15.8 points a game, 26% usage percentage. Like he is one of the most important members of this team. He did take the step that we all expected him to take, which I think is deserving of that A already. Like he became an incredibly important part of what we did this year. Without him, obviously without the next thing we're going to talk about too, but without him, we're nowhere near a 3 seed. He put the team on his back so much more than I even expected him to. So yeah, it's an A for me for Blackwell. Definitely could potentially debate something a bit lower because his 3-point percentage was a bit lower and there were games when he kind of wasn't there, but based on preseason expectations, A.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. The community, by the way, if you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see below, but the community had A as well. 74.1% of Twitter users voted an A for Blackwell, 25% B, 0.3% for C. That just feels like one guy who accidentally clicked the wrong button. Like, oops, dang it, I can't go back. Yeah, it's an A. Like, it's an A. I know there was talk before the season about, hey, Blackwell's going to take the Johnny Davis jump. And I don't think he quite took that jump. But the guy averaged like 16 and 5. He was consistently, if you look at synergy, in the 70th percentile, 65th percentile defensively, which on this team was a rarity, while also shouldering a huge load offensively, getting in the paint, playing a ton of minutes. That stretch when Klesmit went out that we struggled a little bit. Can you imagine if you didn't have a Blackwell who could shoulder up and play 37 minutes a game? Like, that's what he was doing. So handled the ball. I don't think that's his best position, being kind of a combo guard, asked to initiate offense more than I think he probably should, and he still sucked it up, and he played really, really well. I agree. I think it's an A. Again, it's maybe little things to nitpick here. I think the assist to turnover ratio is about a 1-to-1. You can nitpick that a little bit, but lost in some of this, he's a true sophomore. Great year for a true sophomore. He's an A.
That's absolutely the key. And imagine if he takes a similar step next year. Like, what could he really be? At that point, you're really looking at all Big Ten for sure. I mean, first team potentially. And that's kind of the expectations that I really have for him going forward. Like, he is a great player and he's only going to get better. You can see the upside there.
All right, let's get into the next grade, the easiest of the grades. As Jordan Funch says, what's going on? Tonje A+. Yeah, he aced it. Tonje came in from some type of crazy school somewhere else, and he passed all the curriculum, flying colors, A+, like one of the most incredible single season Badger runs that we've ever seen. Incredible. 20 points a game, essentially. 91% from the free throw line, 38% from 3 on volume. Do you know how hard it is to shoot 38% from 3 when the defense is keyed up on you and you take 5 or 6 a game? That's insane. A+++++, no questions.
I mean, I just want to know who in the community voted him a B, which was 2%. I don't know how you even do that. It's clearly an A. At 19.6 points a game. I mean, as you said, he takes 6 threes a game and he shot 38.8%. That's absurd. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous to have that much volume. He put the team on his back so often. Just look at the last game. Just look at the 37-point performance in the NCAA tournament. Like, we talk about this team in the tournament and how at times we haven't really shown up. Well, he did. He only dropped 37 points. And I have this great comment from L Mills. I have to put this up. I've replayed that last possession a million times and how amazing it would have been if Tonje would have mirrored that Bronson K buzzer beater. L Mills, I completely agree with you. I've thought about that play so much. I watched it so many times, and I'm like, boy, I wish he would have just taken that three. What an incredible year. I mean, I have zero things to say negatively about John Tonje. As high of a grade as you can possibly get. Thank goodness this guy came to this school this year. He is the reason we had the 3 seed. He is the reason we had the success that we did. We were picked to finish 12th in the conference, and we finished 4th. That is due to that man.
100%. You know what this feels like, Rajiv? You know, in baseball, when there's those stodgy voters who will never vote anybody in the Hall of Fame first ballot. Like, I'm sorry, Greg Maddux, not on the first try, sucker. Right? Like, that feels like this guy who gave him a B. Like, I'm sorry, you didn't win, you didn't win the national title. Can't quite give you the A+, Sonny. Like, no, this is an absolute A, 100%. Now we're gonna get interesting. I think those grades, not that they weren't unanimous on the Blackwell one. There were some A's and B's in the community. I think we get interesting now. Again, we're going, by the way, we're descending in order of minutes total played this season. So Max Klesmit's up next. I think you're up next to lead this one off. Max Klesmit grade, Rajiv.
Max Klesmit gets a C for me. 29% from 3-point percentage. That to me is the number one stat there. On volume too. I mean, he shot 5.5 times a game. He shot 29%, averaged 9 points a game. There were things about his season that were okay. Like, certainly we saw that when he was out, when McGee had to start, the team didn't look as good. He was really good at spacing the floor. I liked the penetration he had at times. Defensively, he had moments. But compared to preseason expectations, where the guy went nuclear a couple times last year, several times, he didn't really do that at all this year. He never really had a game where he went off. And I was expecting it up until the last time we played, and it never happened. He just never got into rhythm. And yeah, I mean, it was a very average season for Max Klesmit, which is why I gave him a C. I hate to do that to him, but I had higher hopes for him this year. Now, I still think he was a really important part of what we did, and he was a really important part of the program. And I'm really glad that he transferred here because we've used him a lot. But yeah, just on the season, it just never really clicked.
Yeah, I want to start with where you ended. I love Klesmit for what he brought to the Badgers, for what he cared about, for his intangibles, for his culture, his locker room presence. I don't even think I can give him a C, Rajiv. Like, let me ask you this. If we're doing this based on preseason expectations, a C means doesn't a C kind of mean he maybe met or just slightly below? Like, I don't think he came close to my expectations. And that's a reflection of how good I think he can be. He's a career 38% 3-point shooter. He shot 29% this year. And defensively, the numbers weren't great on him either. You look at synergy, it's in the 40th percentile. So it was an okay-ish defensive year. He took a lot of threes. And if you're shooting 29%, that's a lot of empty possessions. And I hate doing this grade because I think he represents so much of what's good in sports. I think it's like a C- D+ because I don't think he came close to the expectations I had. And again, that's a reflection of the fact that I think he's a really good player. And it just wasn't his year.
I will tell you that the reason I gave him that a slightly higher grade is because of like what you mentioned, that impact. But when he was out, the impact he had when he instantly came back, we did get better. And that's kind of where it's some of those intangibles that he brought. And I do really think from a leadership perspective, like I saw him, I mentioned this before on a couple shows ago. And every time, like, there's a foul on the court and the guys huddle, he always is the one talking in there. He was a leader on the court. And you saw that missing from him when he was gone. That's where I think you get that little bit of an uptick. But I don't fault anyone who gave him a D or even below that. I think that's really, the community clearly was right between a C, like some even 31.8% gave him a B. That's actually a bit surprising. Yeah. I can't really see a B for him just because the production, like ultimately, our dependence on him was the ability to shoot the three. Like coming into the season, you would have said he's our best 3-point shooter, 100%. And he was statistically one of the worst.
Yeah. And again, the community, if you're watching or if you're listening, 31%, 32% essentially gave him a B, 53% a C, 13% a D. I wouldn't go D, but I think I'm like a C- right above that threshold. And again, I think that's reflective of he's a really good player. And I just thought we would get more this year. Really quick from the comments, Hunter says C, rough year for him. Sean says, I kept waiting for Kles to come out. You and Rajiv both. Mitch Ames, B-. Leadership and being a glue guy. Make up for average or below average stats. Culture matters. Yeah,
The
100%.
leadership's a really key element for him. Yeah, you definitely cannot discount that.
Yep, I think that's a fair point too. And again, these are just our opinions, your opinions. Every perspective on yours, as always, is welcome. That's the point of these type of things and the point of the community. All right, we're going to take a quick second there. We're going to come back, and I'm going to rant a little bit about you guys disrespecting my man in the middle. I am sick of it. I'm done with it. Steven Crowl he's going to get a higher grade from me than a lot of you. I'm going to tell you that right now. We're coming up next with that on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick second for our friends of the show. Quick second, as always, to say thank you for tuning in. Today's episode brought to you by our incredible friends over at Supply House. Supply House is awesome. There are a ton of handy people. I talk to them who listen to this show. And if you need HVAC supplies, electrical supplies, plumbing supplies, whatever it is, and you want to get it a little quicker, easier, have expert support, go join the tons of people who are already using Supply House to do that. You're going to get all of that over at Supply House. Again, whatever type of skilled trade you're into, it is the easiest and most reliable way to order those products online. Over 200,000 parts, over 400 top brands. You'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. And by the way, I hope Supply House has a big center that can shoot threes and hit assists, because we need one of those now. I'm just saying. Just saying, if you need help with your order, Supply House offers expert support, industry-leading service, so you always talk to a real person, no AI. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order at supplyhouse.com. All right, let's come back into this. I'm going to start with Steven Crowl. Let's go.
You should start with Steven Crowl.
Here's the thing. I'm going to put the community up here as well. Again, everybody in the community voted on these. Steven Crowl got 8.2% A, 55% B, 31% C, 4.7% of you are getting your votes taken away. Got a D for Steven Crowl. Here's the thing. He's an A- for me. And again, understand how I am judging this, how we phrase this question based on your expectations. If you watch 3 years of Steven Crowl and this didn't meet or exceed your expectations, this is a career high for him in efficiency. Shot 41% from three, led the team in assist rate, played every single game. I'm sorry, like A-, B+, it's in that range, but I don't know what more you expected from him. He hit unbelievable marks this year offensively, and 88th percentile in synergy from an offensive standpoint. How many big men shoot 82% from the free throw line? I don't know what else people are expecting from him if you've seen 3 years from him that you're not satisfied with. By the way, if you look at effective shooting percentage, which factors in free throws, and I know I'm ranting a little bit right now, but this is one of my last chances to rant on Steven Crowl. If you look at effective field goal percentage, he's the second best on the team among regulars, behind Nolan Winter. John Tonje's behind him. Blackwell's behind him. Kamari's behind him. You're not going to find a more efficient big guy who plays every single game and does it the right way and represents the culture. He's an A- for me, Rasheed.
Yeah, he's a B+, B for me. I agree with you. I mean, obviously you and I have been very lockstep on Steven Crowl, and I think that representing sort of that other side of it, I do think that people expect big guys as they grow older, as they're here longer in the program. This is a 4-year starter, right? You expect him to be, I think, a bit more dominant in the paint, which I think we just never saw from Steven Crowl. Now, that's just a devil's advocate perspective. I think he did what he could do. Like, this is who he is. He was very reliable on the block, one-on-one against another team's big. Every single time he got the ball down there, I feel like he was taking a good shot. He made a much higher percentage of those this year. And we were talking early in the season, of course, how he wasn't taking the open threes. And we're like, why are you not taking the open threes? Sure enough, he started doing it. 41.6%. 41%. That's the highest on the team, other than Kamari and McGee, who really, it's just those corner pocket threes, and he obviously tailed off. Basically, he was our best three-point shooter for the entire season. I mean, not necessarily on volume, because obviously Tonje was, but wow, like everything he did well. You mentioned many times throughout the season that he's a really good positional defender, and I don't think that gets enough credit. And he really is. Every time you saw him go out of the game and Nolan Winter take the 5 spot, he kind of got abused. Like, Crowl was a better defender than many of the people on our team, especially in the low block. His passing, his vision out of the double team was really strong, and he was able to score when he needed to. I kept saying from time and time again, go down to him more late in the season. It didn't happen. We were running more of a 5-out offense, and that's fine if that's what we were going to do. He had a great career. He started every game almost of his entire career. He started every game this season, 37 games, 37 starts. Like, I don't know what more people want. We are going to miss him. And when we don't have him on our team next year, it's going to be a very, very telling for the team and our stats. we need to replace him, and that's not going to be easy.
Yep. Brian Erdman, we're going to miss Crowl next year. L. Mills gives him a B. Jan Volk, Crowl gets a B+, steady but not consistent score. Will Hanna giving me a little flack for being Big Steve's uncle. I would gladly be that dude's uncle. I did give him a higher grade than most. Mitch says he is who he is, gives him a C+. Lack of defense and rebounding were disappointing. Brian Dodson, maybe rebound a little better, but a B for me. So, yep. I mean, certainly people are a little split on that one, but Will Hanna, B, very good player. When you get into that A category, that's in the excellent department, and that's a bit of a stretch. Again, it's based on expectations, though. That's, again, the point we're trying to make here. I wasn't expecting him to be a star. All right, let's go to the next one. You're going to lead this one off, Kamari McGee.
Yeah, so McGee gets a B for me. So the community grades for him: A 52%, B 43%, C 4%, D 0.2%. Probably just a one-click thing. He gets a B for me. And listen, he would have been an A for most of the season. At one point he was shooting 54% from three. Now he ended up the season at 45.7, which is the highest on the team. 45.9, highest on the team. But I think the part of the season where Klesmit was hurt and he had to start, you saw some holes in his game. His three-point shooting tailed off dramatically at the end of the season, which is why he went from 54 down to 45. And there were a lot of good things about him. And I think even when I think about expectations, I understand why most people gave him an A. And I think I would have as well. But the end of the season kind of left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth for the way that it ended for him and the way that he was kind of just a non-factor in the tournament and even for most of the Big Ten tournament. And that's why I had to drop him down to a B. But still a really good season, above sort of my expectations, but just not quite at that A level.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a good point with the late season. There was a point where this was going to absolutely be an A. The way he was trending and shooting, we were like, God, get him more minutes, and then he got more minutes. We're like, maybe a few less, maybe just like a little too many minutes now. We're like Goldilocks here. That's a little too much now. Let's find the middle ground. I still think it's an A. Like I still think it's an A-. I wouldn't go A. I think it's A- because, again, beating a dead horse is the last time I'll say it, I promise. But based on expectations, you look at what he did last year. I'm going to give you three numbers. Okay, the three numbers are 8, 27, and 2. He played 8 minutes a game, shot 27% from three, and 2 points a game. He basically tripled those types of numbers while upping his shooting percentage, going from 8 minutes in 8 minutes that we didn't think was that good to 21 minutes of being a really good bench guy, going from 2 points to I think it's 6.5 this year, being a consistent 3-point shooting threat. I thought that was a tremendous jump that I don't think anybody before the season expected that. Plus, he gives you the leadership type qualities of a Klesmit. I think it's an A- for me, again, just based on what we had seen in his time in Wisconsin and what he did this year.
I mean, and to end off with that, like, what a great career he had here. Coming here as a transfer, he really had a great career. He embodied the Wisconsin man. He wanted to play here. He had a great year overall, and you can't take anything away from him on that.
Couple of comments here. And again, we always try to get a spattering of you guys' comments on each player. Herb says McGee's a solid B+. I agree. He was an A through 2/3 of the season. Exactly kind of what Rajiv is saying. Hunter says A is a stretch, especially down the stretch. Jan McGee B+. Robert McGee B. Slim McGee C+. Hustles and gives his all, just not good enough to be a starter on a Sweet 16 team. Yeah, interesting. Definitely an interesting spread of grades there. And Erdman says McGee was a surprise for sure. All right, let's get into the next one. Nolan Winter. Nolan was really interesting to me this year. I give him a B. I think to me it's a solid B. Incredibly efficient. Do you know, this shocked me. I was going through the numbers in preparation for the show. Do you know what he shot from 2-point percentage? I mean, that's an unfair question, but he shot 71%.
Led the conference, by the way, in 71%. Yeah.
I didn't really realize that till I looked. That's insane. 98th percentile on offensive efficiency. And yet there were games where it just felt like he wasn't a factor, right? There were games where it just felt like for a long stretch of time, winter didn't arrive. It was April, and you're like, it was spring, and you're like, where is this guy? He's so efficient. You need to be more consistent, and I think that's going to come. By the way, I think he has an enormous ceiling still. I just think there were some consistency issues this year with Winter, which is why I gave him a B. Solid grade, about what I expected.
Yeah, I'm just going to lead this off with this Badger Pack Sports. Still not Dirk, D. I don't know about that. Yes, he's still not Dirk. And congrats on your new podcast, Badger Pack Sports. Look, it's a B for me. 100% agree with you. Solid B. I was happy with the step that he took. Like, he needed to take a step, and now he needs to take another one. Like, he got bigger. He was able to play the 5 and adequately back up Steven Crowl. The 71% is fantastic. He shot 35% from 3 on some volume there, 2.6 threes a game. He was very effective. And honestly, when the man was aggressive, he was almost unstoppable at times. And I just wanted to see more of that. The only thing separating a B from an A for me for Nolan Winter is that constant level of aggression, and really the turnovers. Like, that's something I didn't expect to have. Like, his inability to really take care of the ball, and even like, it wasn't even his turnover. Someone would pass him the ball, he wouldn't catch it, and it would be a turnover that wasn't really given to him in the stats, but it really was on him. And I don't even know what he ended up with as far as turnovers. He ended up with 0.8 turnovers a game. I think he caused more than that. So there were some issues, but I do expect him to take a bigger jump next year. Solid B for me. A good season for him for sure.
Yeah, I agree. We'll get a couple here and then take a quick break while we finish up the show. Herb says toughest grade to make. Still don't know where to go. Interested to hear others' takes. Brian, Nolan took a huge step from last year. And I get you. That's another one that we probably don't talk about enough. That's a sophomore, right? That's a guy much like Blackwell that much was expected, and he's already starting to feel that promise. El Mills a little harder on him. Gives him a C. The non-factor games infuriated me. Slim goes B-. Not his fault he's surrounded by physical bigs who are not his fault. He's not surrounded by as physical a bigs that would complement his game more. That's a fair point. Like, him playing with a more physical 5 would be better for Winter. All right, let's take a quick break here. We're going to come back, talk about some glue guys and a player that I just needed to see more from. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, we're going to take a quick break for our friends of the show.
All right, let's talk about our friends of the show over at Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all the money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, spending in one place, so you stop managing your money and start actually building wealth. It's crazy to me, like how, and listen, I'm one of those guys, right? Without that kind of financial command center, I call it lost money, right? You spend money, you have really no idea where it's going, how much I eat out, things like that. Like, you can really get a sense of where your money is going and how you can actually build wealth. Take full control of your finances using something like Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use Locked On College at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code Locked On College for half off your first year. All right, let's get back into this. So we're going to the bench now, right?
Yeah. Next one up. To me, I love this guy, Carter Gilmore. Did I start off with Winter? I did. So you start off with Carter Gilmore.
I mean, A all day, because again, we're talking about expectations. Listen, how many times was Carter Gilmore a punchline for us last year? Let's be honest. Like, we in general, the community, and myself included, was not very nice to Carter Gilmore. We saw him as an offensive liability. We saw him as a guy that could not space the floor, that literally people could stand 10 feet away from him and he would not shoot the three. And if he did, it was a brick. And this year, all he did was silence everyone by hitting those threes, by taking them, and all of a sudden making defenses change the way they guarded him, like guarded our entire team. And that was a massive jump. And not only that, for me, the effort, man. Like, you talk about Mr. Wisconsin, the guy that embodies what a Wisconsin guy is and what we want our Wisconsin players to be. That's Carter Gilmore. Every effort play he made. We were not a great rebounding team, but he was a solid rebounder. He was a guy that could make athletic rebounds, make plays. Also, he had the best block maybe we've seen in like 10 years on this team. And that's the kind of stuff that Carter Gilmore had and Carter Gilmore brought. We all saw him as a lowest end on the depth chart kind of a guy. All he was generally in the game in the first 5 minutes of every game, which is fantastic. Absolute A for me. Incredible season from Carter Gilmore.
Yep. You're going to agree. I agree with you. I agree with the community. Everybody agrees together. Community says A. 78% of you gave him an A, 19% B, 2% C. He's an A. Again, but for much of the same reasons Kamari. Like, I don't think anybody saw either of these coming, so that's why I kind of have them both in that range. But Gilmore was everything you wanted a glue guy to be. He's my Golden Sneakers Award winner, as the guy that I would most want as a best man at my wedding. He feels like that type of guy. He is just everything again, much like Kamari, and much like going back to Kirsten Sims and the women's hockey team, everything that's great about sports is a guy like Carter Gilmore. By the way, there's a couple games we might not win without him. Defensively, matching up with guys like Dawson Garcia. There's a great point from Gabe Ramos. We probably don't win the Northwestern game without him. He made some huge key defensive plays. The Montana game, you remember when they cut it to 4? Who hit the 3 to push it to 7? It was Mr. Carter Gilmore. And then the very next play coming down, he took the offensive foul on the guy that was dicing us up. I forget his name on Montana. He just made a ton of winning plays. Easy A for me. I 100% agree.
And I also want to point out that, like, you were even someone who had said you probably thought he had made his last 3. I think you actually said, like, he was done, it was broken, it was finished. And then he came out of the Big Ten tournament and just splashed, and it was great.
Yep, I did say that. Yeah, no, he was, and that's resiliency. That's confidence. I love it. He was such a good story this year. Brian said Gilly found his game. Herb, A+ for Gilmore based on my extremely low expectations, which is again kind of where we all were.
Yeah,
I mean, absolutely. B+ for Mitch Ames. Didn't know what we were getting. Gilly James or Happy Gilmore. Okay, let's go to the next one here. Jack Janicki.
It's you.
Oh man, this is another one like mid-season. My grade is a lot different. I felt like mid-season, it almost felt like, gosh, this guy is trending to maybe being the type of guy who could be a starter next year. And then I felt like the wheels fell off for him. I think it was a bit of a redshirt freshman wall. Maybe some teams figured him out a little bit. To me, it's just like a C-. This is about what I would have expected if at the beginning of the year, if you said Janicki's going to get 10-ish minutes a game, he ended up shooting 27% from 3, 33% from the line. He wasn't particularly good defensively. I do think his passing flashed. He has a feel for the game. He can make some nice feeds, but outside of that, it didn't feel like he gave you much else the rest of the year. I think it's just a C-, about what I would have expected.
Yeah, C- is what I wrote down for Jack Janicki. I just think that he's just not quite there yet. He's a guy that can take a jump, and maybe our expectations are obviously higher for him next season. He just flashed, like, I can think of like 4 or 5 times where I'm like, Jack Janicki, heck yeah, let's go. But that was it, right? Like, it was all the other times where we were constantly sort of frustrated with the things that Jack Janicki was doing. He tried too hard. He turned the ball over at times. He took bad shots. He wasn't really effective at shooting. I mean, 27% is just not good for someone of that kind of, with a guy that we know can shoot the ball better. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, what I expected from him was to be able to come in there and be a bit of a sharpshooter at times. And we didn't see that. So that's why I had to grade him lower. C- for Jack Janicki. I do think he can grow next year. And I still think he's going to be a key part of this team going forward. You're right. He's a redshirt freshman. Like, you can't really expect that much from him. But I wanted to really see growth throughout the season. But instead, I saw kind of him peak and then sort of tail off. And that's really what sticks with me about his season.
Yeah, like I do wonder, and this is something somebody mentioned to me, and it made me realize, yeah, you're probably right. I think he just hit the wall. I think it's just like, okay, he hasn't played that much, and he got a little physical. It gets physical in the Big Ten. Yeah, most of the comments in your Janicki are C+ from Jan Volk, D+ from Hunter, C from Badgerback Sports, C from Nebo, and I think we're all kind of in the same boat there. Last one here, I think this is my turn on Xavier Amos. Is it my turn or your turn to lead this off?
I think it's my turn.
Okay, you lead off Amos.
This was a hard one for me, man. I will say, like, I thought a lot about this one. I'm going with the C+. I like just on the higher side of the C, because at the end of the day, like, honestly, if I'm being honest, he was the transfer I was most excited about. Like, Xavier Amos was the guy that I was like, okay, we have a stretch 4. We need a stretch 4. We need a guy that can really stretch that floor and can be the guy that can be kind of a jack of all trades at that position. And instead, again, there were times where he flashed. There were times where he played really well, good defense against Dustin Garcia. When he was aggressive, he was able to make some things happen. But at the end of the day, he still only averaged 3 points a game. He played 9 minutes, which there were minutes out there. Like, Carter Gilmore ended up playing 19 minutes a game. He could have eaten into those minutes if he was really being as productive as we expected him to be. I think his shot selection was way all over the place. There were times where, like, I want him to take the threes, but I'd rather see him drive. I want to see him make more athletic plays. And at the end of the day, this is really driven on expectations, which is the way that you framed it. I expected him to be the premier transfer. Clearly, that was John Tonje. And so it's a C- for me.
I am shocked. I got to be honest, and I love this. These things are great because it's great to get different perspectives. I am shocked that 35% gave Amos a B in the community vote, which is great. Like, again, that doesn't make me right or you wrong at all. I want to be super clear on this, but I don't know how, based on expectations, you just said it. I'm not just telling you thought he was a premier transfer. I'm telling you there's people like in that staff that thought he was. I'm telling you he thought he was going to be a starter when he came here. Do you know why we're doing him last in this show?
Minutes.
It's because he got less minutes than Carter Gilmore and Jack Janicki and Kamari McGee. I don't even know how that can be a C. Again, based on expectations. That's all we're doing here. And if you take a deep dive into the numbers, You're talking 33rd percentile in offense, not very good on defense. He, among regulars, he was third in 3-point or field goal attempts per 40 minutes. So he was taking a ton of shots while not being very efficient and not playing very well defensively. I agree there were flashes, but based on expectations coming into the year, based on what we both thought, because we talked about it, if I told you at the end of the year, he's going to average 9 minutes a game, I don't even know.
That would have been really sad.
I think you would have said a D. I think you would have said that's a failure. I'm not challenging you in your grade, but that's why I'm at like a D plus. It's just so far off of what I expected based on his skill set, based on what we saw in film. He's a 9th man on this rotation. Like that's just not even close to what I expected from him. So I think there's flashes, and I think there's next year it could be a lot different. But
it needs to be a lot different. Like we're losing a lot of production on this team, and he's one of the guys that's going to be a returning producer of any kind. We really need him to take that jump and adapt to the Big Ten. One
more grade here, and then I want to get into people in the chat with Amos. There's definitely people who are higher on him, and that's, again, disagreements are great. Like my opinion is not the correct. Rajeev's is not. I mean, that's the whole point of this. Great Gard's grade.
This is you first. I'm curious.
It's a B plus. Like it's not you have to get past around a 32 with this type of roster if I'm going to give you an A minus. It's not an A minus year if you get bounced by a 6 seed, even though it's a really good 6 seed. We all acknowledge that the defense wasn't very good in that moment, but it's still, again, I've said this again a lot. I'm not going to rehash everything I've said, but it's a successful season. This was a really good year. The offense was exciting more than anything else. Rajeev, I had multiple people tell me, both people that listened to this show and other people that said, this is the Badgers basketball team that got me into watching Badgers basketball. Like I enjoyed this team and I'm more of a fan because of this team. To me, that's a success. So I give him a B plus for his adjustments, his ability to utilize his rotation, this newer offense, which is going to make it easier to recruit. Huge wins against Michigan State and Purdue and Arizona. By the way, the Arizona game with the 2014-15 team that's an all-time regular season win. It's a B plus for me.
You know, I really wanted to, the key word for me is adaptation, and I wanted to give him an A for adaptation, but I can't because of, you're absolutely right. The loss, I mean, the bottom line is the loss in the tournament carries a lot more weight than other losses. That just does. And you know, we obviously reacted to that. We were destroyed by that game, as all of you were. So it's a solid B for me. But the adaptation, like the offense changed completely. Like that's what we have been calling for. All we've been saying for the last 3 years since I've been on this show is, when is Gard going to make adjustments? And he did that. We saw zone defense at times this year. Can you believe it? But more importantly, we saw him build the team, right? Like he gets credit for that too. Like John Tonje coming on this team is a massive win for Gard. Kirk Penny changing the offense, Greg Steemsma changing the offense is a massive win for Gard. Him keeping these players together is a massive win. Like he had a great season. I agree with you completely. I will not give him an A until he wins and gets to the Sweet 16, but I'm completely happy with him. 5 seed last year, 3 seed this year. Do it again in the transfer portal. Go find another wing. Go find a point guard. Go find a 5, and let's run it back with Gard.
Yep. You and I are in lockstep there. I want to round up the show with some of these comments, and we may pause on a couple of them. I don't want to go too crazy long today, but we definitely want to acknowledge, as always, the voices in the chat. L. Mills, going back to Amos, B-. Gard hindered his progress with weird rotations. Herb also gave Amos a B. Brian, Amos is C-, too inconsistent.
Let's stop there for a second. I'm actually curious. I want to talk about this. I think your comment before, I think that Steve or someone said about the rotations. What do you think about that? Like, I do think that at times him playing 9 minutes a game like did hinder him, because ultimately he's a guy that probably would have benefited from more feel and time in the game. Do you think his production would have been markedly increased had he actually been forced into more minutes?
It's always possible. Like, you're talking about a player who came from a not very good team last year in NIU. That team wasn't very good at a lower level. So now you're adjusting to a better team in a better conference, like more minutes. I have said this, and we talked about this early in the year. I always think earlier in the year, you could have given a few of these players a few more minutes to find their footing. However, you also got to play better, right? Like there's an element of earn your minutes. Gard isn't the type of coach that is going to lock you in the dungeon. Like John Tonje came in and earned 30 minutes a game right off the bat as a transfer. You got to play better. Like he didn't play particularly well on defense. He didn't shoot particularly well. There was turnover issues. So yes, to your first point, but also to your second point, earn more minutes.
Yeah, that's fair. I do think that he could have benefited from more minutes, but you're right. Like he didn't take the chances that he had.
Let's keep going here. Kevin says B- for Gard, improvement, but still not meeting or exceeding expectations. Slim, not on the Gard train. And that's cool too. Like, again, all opinions are valued here. Says he's an F, failed to get the 3 seed, or failed with the 3 seed to get to the Sweet 16. And then the immediate extreme difference of that is Badger Pack Sports, Grey Gard gets an A because I was on the Fire Guard train to start. So you get both extremes right away.
Hey, someone got converted off the Fire Guard train. Look at that. Badger Pack Sports off the train, on the train. I love that.
Also, really quick, go check out their podcast. Badger Pack Sports launched a new Wisconsin-centric podcast. We always say this, man, more content's better. Yeah. So go check out their contest. It's not a competition. The more voices we get out there, the better. Go check out what they're doing. Jan said B+. Gard even used a zone. Going back to your point, Rajiv, adaptation didn't always work, but it did that one time. Again, you guys have much more content here. We're not going to be able to get up to all of them. But yeah, really good show. Really appreciate Rajiv as always. I'll always end on a comment that agrees with me. Sean says, I'm with you, Ryan. Last year I was out on Gard. The adjustments he made brought me back in. Oh, on one reason why I watch your show. All you need is one, baby. Let's go. We're going to wrap it up there. When you're done, go check out Locked On. Actually, go check out Locked On College Basketball. It's March Madness going on right now. Isaac Shade, who's been on the show, he's incredible. Andy Patton. March is here. So be the most informed college basketball fan throughout the madness. Find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Rajiv, any last words on our grades here?
I mean, I think that in general, we're going to look back at the season and realize that it was a good season. And like all of our grades have been pretty solid. Like there was a lot of things to be excited about this team. And we are losing a lot of production. So I think that's the big question left in the air is what are we going to do now? But I'm really, really thankful for the guys that played here. We're going to miss them. Stephen Crowl, very much missed, and all those guys. And hopefully we can reload and do it again.
Yep. Last word here. Appreciate everybody for listening. Last word for me is there's a lot of things I don't understand in life. Like I don't get Matrix 2 or 3. I don't know what the hell happened in those movies. I don't understand the plot. I don't understand how to make an omelet. Like I don't understand a lot of things in life. I don't understand how anybody didn't give Stephen Crowl at least an A or B on their grades. Shame on all of you on Wisconsin, and we will talk later.